Okay, imagine this. A huge, luxurious ocean liner, right? Suddenly, boom, it's flipped completely upside down.
Wild image.
Totally. And you're inside. What happens when the floor is now the ceiling? That's really the core question we're diving into today with the Poseidon Adventure, the 1972 classic. For a lot of people, this is the disaster movie.
Absolutely. And the source material we have here, this detailed review, is really fantastic. It doesn't just, summarize the plot. It digs deep into why it works.
Yeah.
Looks at the story structure, the characters, the actual filmmaking techniques, which were pretty radical then, and the themes that still kind of hit home today.
Yeah.
So our mission here is basically to pull out the key stuff, the most interesting bit, so you get a real sense of why this film made such a splash and why it, still does, without needing to read the whole dense review yourself.
Exactly. Let's get to the heart of why the Poseidon Adventure connected with so many people and why it's still seen as such a benchmark. Okay, so the disaster itself, it happens fast, right?
Oh, unbelievably fast. That's one of the first things that strikes you. You've got the SS Poseidon, final trip, New Year's Eve party in full swing.
Yep, champagne flowing.
Right. And there's this background pressure. The captain's being pushed to keep speed up despite warnings. And then maybe only 30 minutes into the movie, bang, underwater earthquake, massive wave, and the whole ship just capsizes.
It's shocking how early it hits.
It really is. And the review points out how this sudden flip isn't just like a plot device. It fundamentally changes everything for the people inside. Their whole world is literally turned upside down.
It must be incredibly disorienting even watching it. And that image, the upside down ship, it becomes this central metaphor almost. Like the review says, it's not just a physical problem to solve.
No, it's chaos visualized.
Yeah. Everything you know is wrong. Survival means navigating this bizarre, inverted reality. It makes you think, what happens when all the rules just disappear.
Exactly. And out of that total chaos, you get this small, kind of random group of survivors. Different backgrounds, different personalities, all thrown together.
Right.
And their first goal, their instinct, is just to get somewhere safe. But safe in this upside-down world means climbing up towards the ship's bottom. The hull.
Which feels completely wrong.
Totally counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The review calls that initial scramble this survival gauntlet. And it really sets the pace for everything that follows.
And it just doesn't let up, does it? The review really emphasizes that structure. It's like a series of escalating tests inside this wrecked, flooding ship. You've got rising water, then there's fire, then blocked passages. It's almost like levels in a game, pushing them harder and harder and picking them off one by one.
Yeah, it's a template you see again and again in later disaster movies. But what makes it so effective here, as the review notes, is how tight and efficient the storytelling is.
Right.
There's this constant forward momentum. The obstacles feel logical, consequences of the capsizing, and with each one the group shrinks, the stakes get higher. That feeling of constant danger and loss keeps you absolutely gripped.
And carrying us through all that are these, really unforgettable characters. The review highlights the cast, and Gene Hackman as Reverend Scott. Wow.
Yeah, he's something else.
This fiery, unconventional preacher, as the review puts it, he's all about faith, but it's an act of faith. It's about taking action, helping yourself, not just praying and waiting. His energy just powers the whole group forward.
And his dynamic with Ernest Borgnine's character, Mike Rogo, the cop, that's crucial.
Oh, yeah, the clashes.
Constant clashes. The review nails it, faith versus law. Two strong personalities basically fighting for control in this pressure cooker. It adds this whole other layer of tension. It's not just human versus nature. It's human versus human, too.
It makes you wonder about leadership styles in a crisis, doesn't it?
Definitely. And then there's Shelley Winters, Belle Rosen. The review calls her the film's emotional heart, and that feels spot on.
She's amazing.
She starts out seeming maybe a bit ordinary, but she finds this incredible strength, this deep humanity when things get desperate. And that swim scene.
Oh, that swim scene. Unforgettable. It's just so powerful.
Just heartbreakingly powerful. And beyond them, the review mentions the smaller arcs, too, like Red Buttons and Carol Lynley finding this sort of gentle connection amidst the horror.
Yeah, the nervous singer and the quiet bachelor.
And even the characters who seem tougher, like Stella Stevens as Linda Rogo or Roddy McDowall's character Akers, they have these moments where their vulnerability shows through. The review's right. They feel like well-drawn, flawed people, which makes you care about whether they make it.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. We have to talk about the effects, how they actually showed this thing happen.
Oh yeah, mandatory.
The review calls the capsizing a practical effects showcase, and you can see why. This was before CGI dominated everything.
Right, this was the real deal. They built huge sets that could actually rotate. They used tons of real water, actual fire, and stunt performers doing incredibly dangerous work. For 1972, it was revolutionary.
Thinking about doing that practically, it's kind of mind-boggling.
It really was ingenious. And the whole concept, the upside-down world, the review, praises the brilliant concept and the brutal realism in how they designed it.
Like the little details.
Exactly. Like remembering that light fixtures hanging from the new ceiling are now obstacles, or furniture bolted to the new floor is now falling down. That attention to detail makes the environment itself a constant threat.
Makes the familiar suddenly lethal.
Precisely. And as the review points out, seeing the sets get progressively more damaged, more flooded, more destroyed, it just cranks up the claustrophobia and the feeling that time is running out.
And you know what's amazing? The review mentions this too, because so much of it was practical, real stuff happening.
It still looks good.
Yeah. It holds up surprisingly well, even today. There's a weight, a reality to it that CGI sometimes lacks.
Absolutely. There's a visceral feel. And you can't talk about the feel without mentioning the sound and the score. John Williams, actually. An early one for him.
Before Jaws and Star Wars.
Exactly. The review mentions its classic orchestral style. It gives it that sense of scale, grandeur, but also tension and sadness.
And the song, The Morning After, Oscar winner.
Yeah. Hearing that playing during the party scene, all happy and optimistic.
Knowing what's about to happen.
It's just chilling. The review calls it an eerie prelude, which is perfect. Such a clever, ironic touch.
And the actual sound effects must have been crucial, too.
Oh, massively. The groaning metal, the roar of the water, the crashing sounds. The review emphasizes how the sound design just pulls you right into the ship, makes you feel like you're there. Immersion is key.
So it's thrilling, it's spectacular, but the review also digs into the deeper stuff, the themes.
Right. It's not just about survival. There's that central theme of faith versus fatalism.
Hackman's character versus, well, almost everyone else initially.
Sort of. His active, almost demanding faith. God helps those who help themselves. Versus the instinct to just wait, to hope for rescue, to resign yourself to fate. It really asks, how do you react when everything seems hopeless?
That conflict drives so much of the drama.
It really does. And it ties into another big theme the review highlights. Individual sacrifice for collective survival.
Yeah. Who steps up?
Exactly. The choices people make under that extreme pressure, whether they look out for number one or risk everything for the group, that's when you see their true colors. Makes you wonder, what would I do?
It's a heavy question. And it's interesting how the review mentions the breakdown of normal social rules. Class, age, and judgment kind of melt away.
Yeah, in that upside-down world, your job title or your bank balance means nothing. It becomes about basic human qualities, courage, resourcefulness, compassion. Status disappears, and heroes can come from anywhere.
And then there's that idea of reversal and rebirth, climbing up to the bottom. It's symbolic, isn't it?
Very much so, according to the review. It's like this painful, costly journey through hell, almost, that forces transformation. The review poses that great question. Who do you become when the world turns upside down?
Oh.
That really sticks with you.
It does. Now, no film is perfect. The review does acknowledge some criticisms, though it argues they're fairly minor in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Like some of the dialogue might sound a bit theatrical or dated now.
A bit 70s.
Yeah, maybe a touch. And the back and forth between Scott and Rogo, while effective, maybe gets a little repetitive for some.
Okay.
And the review also concedes that maybe the buildup feels a little slow compared to modern blockbusters. And while the female characters are memorable thanks to the performances.
Winters especially.
Oh, absolutely. But maybe their actual writing isn't quite as developed as Hackman's or Borgnine's roles. Still, the review sees these as minor flaws.
It doesn't really take away from the overall power of it.
Not really, because the film delivers so strongly on its core premise and has these truly standout moments. That initial capsizing in the ballroom.
Spectacle. Pure terror and spectacle.
Totally. And we mentioned Shelley Winter's swim. The review calls it powerful, heartbreaking, unforgettable, and that's not an exaggeration. You feel every second of her struggle.
And that final climb out, the tension is just unbearable.
Absolutely. And the review singles out that scene where Hackman basically has a shouting match with God in the engine room.
Yeah. That's intense.
It's such a raw, bold moment of frustration and desperate faith.
Yeah.
You don't see that often, especially not in a big disaster movie like this. Really unique.
So summing it all up, the review's verdict is pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, it calls the Poseidon Adventure one of the most iconic and emotionally rich disaster films ever made. And it stresses that its strength isn't just the destruction.
But the human response.
Exactly. Rising above fear, pain, and hopelessness. They really kick off that golden age of disaster flicks in the 70s.
Irwin Allen's big moment.
His finest hour, the review says. A masterclass in practical suspense that, still feels towering and unforgettable.
Because ultimately it's about survival, but also...
The cost of that survival and the courage it demands. That's the final word from the review, along with that solid 9 out of 10 rating. Speaks volumes.
Definitely. So just to recap the key takeaways for everyone listening, we've talked about that absolutely killer premise, the upside-down ship, the fantastic ensemble cast led by Hackman and Winters, those truly groundbreaking practical effects that still impress, and those deeper themes running underneath it all. Faith, sacrifice, change.
Transformation through crisis. And that leaves us with maybe one last thing for you to think about. Reflecting on the film. What might be the unexpected capsizing moments in your own life? You know, those times when things get turned upside down, forcing you to maybe reevaluate your priorities, dig deep, find strengths you didn't know were there.
Yeah.
How do you, metaphorically speaking, find a way to climb upward when your world feels inverted? Thinking about the film's themes might just give you a different lens for looking at your own challenges.